Hi everyone, welcome to Boss Run, aka the Billy Hoosh Experience. I'm your humble host, Billy Hoosh, and let's get started. So, last night, I had a bit of an accident. As you may have known from previous episodes, I'm suffering from some seasonal allergies here, and last night I sneezed on my fancy OLED gaming monitor, while I was playing some video games. And that sneeze was quite horrific. Now I freaked out. I immediately grabbed my microfiber cloth that I carry here. It's that fancy orange color that makes it look like it's advanced German engineering. And all it did was smudge the grossness further all around the OLED monitor. Now, I freaked out because I know these fancy new monitors, similar to fancy reading glasses or glasses, they all have these coatings on them nowadays, anti-scratch, anti-glare coatings. So I was freaking out that maybe I just scratched the screen trying to clean the gunk. So I went on the internet and I figured out what's the best way to clean this stuff. You can't really use like Windex and that kind of, or isopropyl rubbing alcohol, because those are harsh. They have chemicals and they'll remove the coating or leave scratches. So the best advice I got from everywhere and anything that I checked was simply use distilled water. Distilled water with 2 microfiber cloths. So you would wet one with distilled water and lightly wipe the goop off your OLED screen, and then use the dry one, or just use the back of the wet one that's hopefully dry, and that should do it. And you know what? It did it. So behind me, for the folks that are watching the video version on YouTube or on Spotify, you can see the big jug of distilled water that I bought from the supermarket, or you can get them at pharmacies. It was 4 liters of distilled water for less than $2. It was like $1.50. And typically, I think these distilled waters sold for people to put in their CPAP machines. So folks that have like trouble sleeping and they have to sleep with these machines on, I believe that's what the distilled water is typically sold for them. But just use that. You can clean all your electronics with it, and it's dirt cheap. You just need some microfiber cloths, and a spray bottle would make it easier. So I just spray, lightly dampen the cloth, wipe it off, and as good as new. So that was a big win. I was really sweating. That I like messed up my monitor, but it all worked out in the end, and I learned a lesson on how to properly clean these quantum dot OLED monitors without leaving these purplish, weird-looking blobs on them. So it's all good. Hopefully this tip will help other people out there. And that's our first little hardware segment that we talked about. So yeah, use that cheap distilled water. Don't buy the fancy stuff that they sell on Amazon. That's just like they put a drop of like blue food coloring in them and then mark it up 1,000%. Just go to your local store, grab some distilled water, keep it in the house, and you're all good to go. So I finished the Halo Campaign Evolved Legendary run, playing the game with 2 other friends, playing co-op, and it was a lot of fun. On the PC, I did have 2 crashes that were kind of devastating, especially when you're doing the co-op legendary run, because if you crash and get like booted from the session, you can't just mid-game hop in and join your friends. You're just done until they like either finish that mission, or they stop playing. So that was a bummer. But as my first experience playing Halo, It's a pretty good game. Like it's a good game. I don't know if I would pay like $80 Canadian for it or what have you, but it's pretty sweet. Also, what's going on in the world of Xbox, especially Game Pass and stuff like that. That Beast of Reincarnation game came out, and it had a lot of like mid reviews. And from my experience playing it, I kind of agree with them, but I still want to play the game through to just the presentation. Besides the fact that some of the enemy design is bland and I haven't seen too many unique enemies, it's still kind of okay, and it's still like the world is intriguing enough that I want to play through it. Like even if you just like put it on easy and whip through it, but it definitely feels like kind of like it feels a lot like Stellar Blade or Nier, like that kind of like it's definitely going for that kind of vibe. So the interesting thing, like I learned about the story behind this game because it's like, what the hell, like a Game Freak game made by the Pokemon people being published by a publisher I've never heard of. And it just like kind of felt like it's coming out of nowhere. But I believe last week, that Jason Schreier from Bloomberg, your number one source of video game news, he published an article, and he is also detailed in a YouTube video you could probably find online, where he explained the situation, which is very interesting. So, Beast of Reincarnation is it's published by a publisher called Fictions, and Fictions is basically former employees of another publisher that you may have heard of, Annapurna Interactive. They've recently published that, I think it was called Mixtape. That Mixtape game that I had like, meh. But they also made like the game Stray, I think. They put that out. So Annapurna Interactive, I always thought that these guys were some like indie developer and indie publisher that came out of nowhere, kind of like Devolver Interactive, until like Jason Schreier's report explained that this publisher it's run by Megan Ellison. So yes, the same Ellison family, like was the guy's name Larry Ellison, the CIA guy who created the database, the original big database for the CIA that was called Oracle, that then became Oracle, and that are now buying up like every single like media entity. So yeah, this is like the Ellison family's version of, I guess, like Miramax for video games. And the reason why all the folks left Annapurna to form Fictions was because Megan Ellison hired a new president for the company who had essay allegations towards him. So everyone left the company and formed a new company called Fictions, and that company bought out the portfolio of a floundering publisher called Private Division. And they already were working on publishing Beast of Reincarnation, so they took over from that. So it's a very interesting story around how this game came to be, or just like all the background going on it. And I recommend, if you're interested in that, check out Jason Schreier's reports on Bloomberg in regards to this. But yeah, I think I'm gonna definitely just put it on easy and play through the story of Beast of Reincarnation, just to see what it's like. I mean, it's definitely like a Game Pass caliber game, or a game you would pick up down the road for free, or a game that would possibly show up on PlayStation Plus as a freebie like next year or something like that. So I wouldn't go out of my way to pay full price for it, but it's not as bad as people keep dunking on it for being. more so. So we've got like two more, I guess, Game Pass adjacent games. Oh yeah, the other thing is going on right now. It's like QuakeCon, or I think it's finishing up. QuakeCon in Texas. So that's like the big Quake convention that's been going on for probably 29 years, 30 years. And it's the anniversary. It's the 30th anniversary of Quake, which for me, that's a thing because I remember when Quake came out. I bought Quake retail box from. I had to beg my uncle to give me a ride to Walmart so I could buy the box version of the first Quake game. And so it's the 30th anniversary to that. They didn't really like all they did at QuakeCon. The big deal was they had all the developers. They had John Carmack and John Romero and all the other guys, Adrian Carmack, and I don't think American McGee was there, but he talked a lot over the internet during that time, where they had all the interviews and like showcases of them talking about Quake. The other big thing was that Trent Reznor, like he phoned in. There was like a video thing of Trent Reznor talking about how he got signed on to make Quake and how he was a big fan of like Doom and Wolfenstein 3D. Also, there was a collaboration between Nine Inch Nails and Quake. So Nine Inch Nails released a bunch of like merch, like Quake merch on their website. And it was just like a limited run of it. First, the t-shirts all sold out. Everything sold out except the most expensive thing, which were the sweaters, the hoodies, which I ended up buying one. I just had to. I'm a big fan of Quake and Nine Inch Nails. So I thought like, man, I should just get one. So I got a limited edition hoodie that is Nine Inch Nails and Quake 30th anniversary in the mail. Should be here sometime like end of September as a late birthday present for myself. But that was a big thing. The other big thing, I guess the biggest thing for celebrating the 30th anniversary of Quake was that they released a new basically DLC campaign for the original Quake game. Made by Machine Games, and it was called Dawn of the Machine. And it's actually pretty good. It's actually really good. I played a bunch of the first couple levels of it. I haven't completed it, but they really twist they play upon your expectations of what you're used to, especially like they kind of go beyond the capabilities of the Quake engine in some unique ways. And it's really cool. But also they like kind of expand and like, but they stay in the lore of Quake, as in like being that space marine guy who's just like trapped in this like interdimensional hell, basically trying to get his way home. So it's really, really sweet. And it's completely free. If you own the Night Dive, I don't know, this remaster, I guess. It's not a remake. It's a remaster of Quake. If you own the latest Night Dive version, which is like, it's always on sale. I think right now you can buy $5 Canadian. It includes this brand new, like pretty beefy, long campaign for Quake, Dawn of the Machine. And they all have like achievements or trophies, and it's on every system as well. I'm not sure if it's on Switch yet. It probably is, probably coming, but it's on everything that you can play the Night Dive version of Quake. We didn't quite get the remake we wanted. Like everyone's hoping for a Quake remake, like especially the Quake 1 Lovecraftian kind of Quake. That would be cool, like gothic kind of Quake, opposed to like the later on the Quake games were more of like kind of like a cyberpunkish kind of thing with the Strogg enemy and stuff like that. But yeah. So like big celebration for Quake's 30th anniversary, making us all feel quite old. But also more my final like Xbox, and even kind of like Quake, it gives me always Quake vibes as in the style of this game, was I've been playing the Gears of War multiplayer beta, and I hope to play a little bit more today as well, probably after this, once this is uploaded Sunday. I'll play more of it. So I never really played the Gears of War games back in the heyday. I did play a little bit of Gears of War 4. I think that was like in 2016 or 2015 when I started to come back to PC gaming and played it on the PC. So my impressions of the Gears of War game, just like my impressions when I saw the videos, the game looks good and it feels really nice playing it, like controls and stuff like that. I do need the single player game just to get the control scheme like wired into my head, because like I'm still like all my button mapping in my brain, I still feel like I'm playing like a first person shooter. So I'm just thinking of like COD movement and stuff like that. Whereas they have really weird button placement. Probably not weird for like a Gears veteran, but like, cause it's a cover shooter, there's different mechanics and stuff, playing this game. So I need to like either like play through the single player once the full game comes out. So I get that, understand how they want me to play it with a controller, or remap the controller to make it similar to COD. In the beta, in this multiplayer beta, you get to play the Horde mode and the Versus mode. So if you're familiar with Gears of War, the Horde mode is it's like a co-op mode. You're like thrown together with like a squad of like 4 or 5 different people. And then you're like, just fighting off like waves of enemies. And then after the waves of enemies are gone, you can like reinforce or upgrade your weapon and all this kind of stuff. And it's a fun like PvE kind of experience. They up the ante with this game because it's almost like the Horde mode is in this like open world, like this like post-apocalyptic city, and you encounter other squads of real players in certain areas. So you'll play like a section fighting together as a small group, and then you'll move on to another section where there's like 4 other squads of online players, and you're all together like defeating like a big boss or something like that, almost like a raid. It's very cool. It was very fun playing that. I really enjoyed the Horde mode, and I think like a lot of people associate the multiplayer of Gears of War with that particular mode. Now the versus mode is that typical like teams, 2 teams versus each other. That was like, I need to play a little bit more of that mode, because I was having some difficulty playing that mode. And that could also be like, it's less forgiving because you're fighting other real players, and you really need to understand the controls, especially playing against like people who've been playing Gears of War forever. It also looked like some folks were like, they figured out some weird way of playing where they were like, people were like jumping around or like mantling really fast around the map. I heard it referred to as like surfing, and then just using the shotgun. So they were able to like maneuver through the map really quick and then just like shotgun you, one shot you in the face. And I was reading a little bit about this on the internet, and it seems to be like that's a way that it's almost like bunny hopping or what have you, where like people figured out ways to exploit the movement mechanics to be able to like play this like different level of intensity or whatever, which I don't know about that. It kind of like killed the fun of it, because then it's like, you're not playing as a cover shooter anymore. You're not playing the game how I guess the game designers intended it to. And then like everyone would have to learn how to do that exploited like movement technique to be able to have fun. But besides that, the game seems pretty competent and very polished. I mean, it still needs some performance optimization. I mean, on my computer, it still ran no problem, like 60, 70, 80 frames per second. But still, it felt like it could perform a bit better. And I heard other people with like less beefy rigs were having kind of issues with it. It's another Unreal 5 engine game. So like, do with that as you will. Like there's expectations for that. But like, I mean, there's some good Unreal, like properly optimized Unreal games that come out. So maybe it just needs a little bit more. I definitely need to play more of that game. But so far it looks good, and I'm really interested to see what the single player campaign's like too. So Yeah, that's definitely one to look towards. But yeah, here's some more big news we've got here. So in an unprecedented media deal, Rockstar Games has announced that Grand Theft Auto VI, an extended look, which is a first of its kind showcase, will be debuting Thursday, August 27th on Netflix. So Netflix subscribers get a 6-hour. Wait, never mind. It's not. I'm reading the slop wrong. A 6-hour exclusive early window at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So basically, Rockstar had a deal with Netflix that this showcase, basically a glorified trailer that's showcasing like the final reveal of gameplay for Grand Theft Auto 6. It's going to premiere first on Netflix. So Netflix subscribers can watch a commercial on 6 hours before then it's posted on YouTube for the rest of us who don't have Netflix. Very, very, very divisive. When this was posted, a lot of people were like, "Oh, that's stupid. Well, you got to pay for Who's going to pay for Netflix to watch a commercial?" Which they're right. They're right. But also, what a great commercial. Think about the millions of people around the world that have Netflix. So once they log into Netflix, they're met with like probably like the main splash screen or the screen with like their front page is going to have Grand Theft Auto 6 plastered all over it. So it is like the ultimate commercial, right? That's better than a TV ad. Who watches cable TV, especially the generation that would be buying this game. And like, I remember like back in the day, like, with, whatchamacallit, with, Grand Theft Auto 5, downtown Toronto, there was like billboards everywhere and all the buses and stuff all were plastered with Grand Theft Auto 5 signage. But these days, who leaves the house, right? Everyone, since the pandemic, everyone's at home on Netflix. So it makes perfect sense. That's probably the best place to do a commercial. That's better than the Super Bowl worldwide. Yeah, Netflix makes sense. So like, I don't know. After you take a minute to think about it, it's not as like stupid as you think it is. So yeah, 3 p.m. on August 27th, it's on Netflix. And then on Rockstar's YouTube channel, it's going to be posted at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it's positioned as a major event ahead of the game's November 19th release. The presentation is expected to deliver the first actual deep dive into gameplay and narrative details following years of cinematic teasers. I was going to say teaser trailers, essentially. So yeah, that's what's up. So everyone was wondering after the pre-orders went live, when's the next trailer for this thing? Like, what's going on? So there you go. They're working a deal with Netflix to have this like insane. I wonder how long it's going to be. Maybe it's going to be like an hour or 45 minutes, but that's interesting. I mean, like Grand Theft Auto gameplay, we all know what Grand Theft Auto is going to be like. So I don't know. I guess it's going to be cool either way. I mean, most people like it broke all records and pre-orders. So like people are going to buy it, have already bought it almost at this point. So I don't know. Interesting stuff. Also, another piece of news is I officially got accepted into the closed network test for FromSoftware's upcoming PvPvE, so player versus environment, action game, The Duskbloods. And this is a Switch 2 game. So they say that August 18th, so is that this Tuesday? That's next Tuesday, I think. August 18th. So next Tuesday, you can preload the game. And then the weekend following that is the play test. So, and it runs across 5 dedicated server stress testing sessions. I remember a lot of like the Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2 stress tests. They're all in like these certain blocks of time, and they're like these weird blocks of time because they really want, like, it's a legitimate stress test. But the tests are going to be from Friday, August 21st to the 23rd. So that whole weekend. The 4-hour blocks will give us our first hands-on look at the 8-player Bloodsworn combat. Customized builds and dynamic match rolls before the game launches later this year. Yeah, as of now, no one knows what this game is. I'm actually curious to see if they're going to do like some sort of Nintendo Direct before the test. You would think they would do that, because why would you want the first impressions to hit YouTube of creators showing your stress test instead of being like foot forward and putting out your own video that's like nice and polished and explains everything? So I would assume that there's probably, I'm guessing even probably maybe Tuesday the 18th when you can do the preload, probably then some sort of Nintendo Direct that's just Dusk Bloods that like tells people like this is what the game is. Because as of now, no one knows what it is. It's just like the Dark Souls, Elden Rings people are making an exclusive Switch 2 game that is like online oriented and like squad based or whatever. I just hope it's not another like extraction shooter or extraction slasher. Because I'm kind of sick of those. But I mean, it's great that I'll get to like test it out to see if I want to actually like pre-order it or buy it. But I hope it's good. And once again, I really like these demos and these betas and stuff like that, because that's what's always been missing. Like, people don't blind buy stuff anymore. You can actually like try things out. Also, like, once again, really loving playing Game Pass games and like saving tons of money, being able to just like not pay full price for a game, which I still do. I still have lots of games on deck for the fall that I'm excited about playing. But yeah. So for me, the rest of the week, I'll be playing Beasts of Reincarnation. Well, first the Gears of War multiplayer beta, Beast of Reincarnation, and probably continue playing the new the Quake. What's it called? The Quake campaign, Dawn of the Machine. Playing that and thinking about this sweater, this fancy hoodie that will be mailed to me next month. The only thing I didn't like about the hoodies, I'm more of a fan of the zip up hoodies. That's what I like. I like zip up hoodies, but this is it's the kangaroo pouch pullover hoodie, which is fine. I think the only reason I like zip ups is because I wear glasses and I don't like having to like take my glasses off, put on a hoodie, put my glasses back on. It's kind of lazy, right? But yeah. Anyways, y'all have a great week. We'll see you next week when I'll talk some more jibber jabber about video games. God bless.